and uh, all the videos that we did previously, 1, 2, and 3, are both on Facebook, my Facebook site, and on YouTube under National Santa. So you can watch these webinars or tell a friend about them, let them go to YouTube and watch the webinars. And, hopefully some of the information I'm giving out is valuable, and it will be good for those people that are out there. Okay, and I'm going to see what I can do here. I've got a bunch of videos here, and I am stuck on Buckeye Santa's. I don't know why. My screen, I am looking right at Buckeye Santa's, and it's terrible. He's not even wearing a t-shirt. Wouldn't you know it? That's the view that I get, okay, sitting here at my desk. Anyway, so for those that can't join us right now, Facebook and YouTube are the places to go. And like I said, instead of giving you an actual email or web address, remember it's facebook.com/National Santa, one word, or you can go to YouTube and type in National Santa. And again, you can see the videos there. Last week, I covered a few little subjects, but I also answered some questions and things from some of you. And again, that's why we have the webinars on those sites, so that you can go back and look at them and see about those questions. But I did mention last week, iBurbs has their scholarships, and the scholarships closed on Sunday night. So for those of you who did put in applications, I'm wishing you the best of luck. They're giving out, I think, 8 $250 scholarships to attend any Santa school or Santa training of your choice. Could be my school for Santas, but it could be Sat Bob's, it could be Charles W. Howard, it could be Susan Mesco's American Events, her Santa school, any one of them. And I think it also includes the Brothers Claus and some of the other workshops that are taught around the country. So again, it has to be one that's approved by iBurbs, but again, they're giving out the scholarships, and hopefully some of you who might have signed up will be lucky recipients of those scholarships. And that's it for this year. I guess no more scholarships for the rest of the year. After the scholarships, I did cover some information on insurance, liability insurance, and why we need it and where you can get it. Most often, most of the Santas and Mrs. Claus get their insurance via one of the Santa associations. And so I did cover all that. I also covered background checks. And if you're looking for information on those subjects, the easy thing to do is, first of all, check with your local Santa association or your National Santa Association. They do have those things on their website. I have also created a page at realsantas.com. That's one of my websites. And if you go across the menu and the drop downs, you'll see a little link for background checks and insurance. And I've listed insurance that I've gotten from those associations. I've tried to collect it all in one location to make it a little easier to collect, have that information. However, the information I have is only as good as what people give me. And one of the questions I got after the webinar last week was, isn't there a deadline, or when did the insurance start, and things like that? And I might not have completely covered that. So one of the things you may want to do is remember that most of the association insurances begin October 1. They're good for a whole year, but they generally start before the holiday season, good through the holiday season. And most of them are only good for if you're a Christmas character, a Santa, Mrs. Claus, elf, reindeer, that type of thing. You can sometimes buy the extension so you can be a wizard or a magician or other character. But the basic insurance only covers you for the basic year for a holiday character, Santa character. But it will also cover you for Christmas in July. So at least you're in the Santa character, or Christmas character. Okay. And again, the link on the menu says Become a Real Santa, and then you'll see insurance and things like that. Let's see. There were also some, some questions I covered last week on a business license, how to get one, where to go to get one, things like that. But one of the key things I mentioned also, which was handy for some of you, is there's an organization called SCORE, SCORE, Service Corps of Retired Executives. And SCORE has been a great organization. They've got chapters all over the country. Many of them are, if you can connect to them through your Chamber of Commerce, but they help entrepreneurs and business people when they're starting their own business. They can help you write a marketing plan, a business plan, and things like that. And so you have SCORE available. And of course, if you want a business license, so we talked a little bit about getting your license, and if you want to file for a DBA, how to go ahead and do that. So we covered that on last week's webinar. By the way, you can find SCORE on the web. Again, SCORE, I think it's .org, SCORE. I closed the webinar on developing your identity for marketing. In other words, making sure that you have an identity that's easy for people to remember and find. I've seen some Santa web addresses and Santa names that were, 6 words long. And that's a little too long for some people to remember. If you want, Santa of the Green Mountains, .com, some people might not remember all of that, especially if it was Green Mountains in the Yellow House.com or something like that. I mean, some of them get very, very complicated. You want something simple. So if you live in Jonestown, maybe Jonestown Santa is what you want, but make it easy for people to remember. That's a key thing with any web address, is trying to make it easy for people to remember. Or a Facebook address, same thing, keeping it short. Or if it's a Gmail address, Backwoods Santa in the Yellow House at gmail.com, people won't remember. So you've got to keep it simple for people to remember those things, unless they actually have your business card or something like that. So we covered that last week. And let's see, that's basically what I've got. I want to get into, we talked about marketing and your identity. So now I'm going to expand a little bit and go make a little bit of a turn, but we're going to stay on your identity, and in particular on your personality. And tonight I want to talk about getting inside Santa's personality. And this is something that we need to always be working on. Now, we don't usually talk about it in that category or title. It's just, part of, developing who we are and what we do. But I received an email with a couple questions from Santa Alan Eckhoff, also known as Santa Pop. And it gave me an idea that I should cover that type of information. He mentioned that he might appear in the red suit at church, where he's also prominent as an usher and a member of the property committee for his church. Now, he wanted to know, what does he have? What can he say to the children when they know him as Mr. Eichhoff and then ask him, is he Santa? And that is, sometimes that does get a little difficult. How many of you have lived in your neighborhood? The kids in the street know you as Mr. Jones, but they see you as Santa. And are you the real Santa? This is why are you living here and not at the North Pole? And all those types of questions. And before I get into answering Santa Eichhoff's question, I'm going to point something out that's maybe a big change for some Santas this year. And that change happens to cover all the questions the children are going to ask you. Because, and I'm not talking about them asking you questions about COVID-19 and the flu and all this type of stuff. I'm talking about the fact that many Santas who work at malls and shopping centers or some sort of photo operation where the normal visit is maybe a minute or two, or if you go by the handbook from one of the photo companies, 20 seconds per family or per child, it can be very short. So we basically just get the 4 basic questions. What's your name? How old are you? Have you been good? And what do you want for Christmas? Those 4 questions. And so you have to be ready to answer those questions. But the thing is, what happens now when maybe you're doing a live video chat and you're with the children for 5 to 8, maybe even 10 minutes, or you're doing a company party or a home visit or something like that, again, where the visits are longer. You're going to get more questions, And sometimes the questions are going to get more involved. This means you have to be knowledgeable. You have to know the answers to a lot of questions. And if you don't know the answers, you also have to be able to think quickly on your feet, be able to improvise and come up with some sort of answer to help keep the magic going. And that's one of the unique things about Santa, is the magic that he can keep going, because he can answer questions in such a way that the children believe that he is the real Santa. And it's the same for Mrs. Claus. The questions that she gets too, because children will ask her questions. They'll ask her questions that they won't ask Santa. They'll ask her questions about, what's it like being with Santa? Do you have to do his laundry? What kind of food does he like to eat? They'll ask Mrs. Claus all kinds of things. So you have to prepare yourself for those things. Okay, now let me get back to Santa Eichhoff's question. And again, he wanted to know, what do you say to the children when they ask you, are you Santa? Now, most of us have probably developed a pretty pat answer. If you're sitting at the Home Depot, or you're visiting your local gas station or anything like that, and someone comes up to you and they say, well, hey, do you play Santa? Most of us don't answer that yes. We don't say, I play Santa. We say, I am Santa. You want the children to believe you're Santa. Just like Kris Kringle, A Miracle on 34th Street. You want the children to believe, and that's what we get to do. We try to help the children believe. And so you have to have that. But like, was asked, what if I'm the usher at church on Sunday, and then the children see me as Santa? What do I say to the children, And so you have to come up with some answers. Now, I have some of my own answers, but I also recommend that, you talk to your friends, talk to other Santas and Mrs. Claus, find out what they like to say, and then pick an answer that you like, that you feel comfortable with when you're talking with the children and things like that. Because we've all had this experience. It's an identical experience. And even if you haven't had it just yet, you will have it. It will happen sometime, someday. And so how about the question when the children come up to you and say, I just saw another Santa somewhere else and it wasn't you. What do you say? Two Santas. We've even had Santas talk about the fact that they've been in an event and there was all of a sudden another Santa came in the room. What do you say? So these are things you have to kind of be prepared for. A lot of times when someone comes into a room and, they see another Santa, fortunately, most of us are real bearded, 24/7, 365, real bearded. So a lot of times for us, it's easy to say, well, I am a real Santa, And the thing is sometimes you'll go somewhere, you might see two Santas. Or maybe on TV, you've seen a movie, and in the movie, there were a whole bunch of Santas. Well, guess what? One of those Santas was the real Santa. It's your job to figure out who it is. If you belong to a Santa association, or if you've ever been to one of the Santa conventions, that's what we tell the children. There may be 50, 100, or 500 Santas all gathered together. And we let the children and everybody else know the real Santa is here. You just have to figure out which one. We did that in our convention in Branson. And one of the reporters even asked a family, they were talking to a little boy, and they says, I've been told the real Santa is here. He says, did you talk to Santa? And the little boy says, oh, I talked to a bunch of Santas. Do you know which one's the real Santa? And the little boy says, yes, it's that one over there. He says, how do you know? He says, he knew I didn't pick up the wet towels after my bath. Again, a Santa knew an answer to give to a child to make the child believe that Santa knew what was going on. And sometimes those are answers that we can use on the children to make them believe that we are the real Santa. So you need to work on that a little bit. Figure out what you're going to answer to the kids when you give them their answer. I wish there were, there's so many movies that have been written and produced showing groups of Santas and Santa helpers and things like that. And that kind of seems to be the same thing all along. They're always saying, these are Santa helpers. There's only one real Santa. Well, I don't think many of us want to be called Santa helpers, or Santa impersonators. I've had media reporters say, we talked to a Santa impersonator today. Wait a minute, I'm not an impersonator. I'm a Santa. I'm real, and but I work with the real Santa. All of us Santas work with the real Santa. And sometimes, you never know which one of us might be the real one. Because what happens is I tell the kids, there's a Santa over there and there's a Santa over there. You don't know which one's the real Santa. But what's really neat is the real Santa goes everywhere. And he trades places with the other Santas. So you never know when you're going to run into the real Santa. There are different answers you can use with the kids. I mean, that's just one of them. In most cases, I just like the children to believe that I'm the real Santa. And I try not to get into the conversations about a Santa over at another location or anything like that. So try to stay away from it if you can. Tell them that you're the real Santa. And if that doesn't work, maybe the thing is, well, that's my brother Fred. And the kids go, what? I said, yeah, you saw the movie Fred Claus? Yeah, that's my brother Fred. Well, when I can't do some of the work, I have Fred do some of the work, and we both get back together every once in a while and compare notes on who's naughty or nice, and he helps me out. The world keeps growing every year, and there's more and more children. So after a while, it got to be a little bit of extra work for me. So I recruited Fred and had him become a real Santa. So there's stories that you can come up with, stories that you can make up. Make up something you enjoy and that you have fun with, okay? And so that kind of covers, I think, a little bit of what our Santa friend was worried about. He could tell the children that, he says, well, I work, my dad is, he could say something like, well, my dad is the real Santa Claus, and someday I'm going to take his place. But in the meantime, I'm in training, but I live here and I go to church here and I spend my time in the community. And at Christmas time, I help him out and work as Santa, because he can't go everywhere all the time. He's so busy managing everything at the North Pole. So I help out. And the kids probably will believe something like that. Okay, I got to sneak up to my computer here. I have to let 4 more people in. Okay, hopefully got them in there. Okay, and take care of that part. Okay. Let's see, let's see, I'm checking the questions right now just in case I missed any, because I did invite some Santas to tell me if they had any questions here. Now someone says, hello, Tim. Are you watching the chats on your webinar? Well, I'm trying to. Okay, someone asked the question, how do you answer child's name when they come up to you and say, oh, what's my name? Well, over the years, lots of Santas have developed things like that. And I'll tell you what, maybe in a future webinar, I'll cover a bunch of the questions kids ask. That might be a kind of a fun thing to do. But what you could do is if a child comes up and they're, like Eddie Haskell, okay, and they sit there. By the way, Eddie Haskell, Ken Osmond passed away just 2 weeks ago. A wonderful guy, former LAPD policeman. From Leave It to Beaver, I'm sure most of you remember that, but I got to meet him a couple times at the Hollywood Parade along with Jerry Mathers and Tony Dow, and they were all good friends, and we're sorry to lose Ken. Anyway, the character from Leave It to Beaver, which was, always getting Beaver into trouble. Well, the thing is, you get these kids that come up and they ask you these, wise acre type questions, hey, Santa, what's my name? One of the easiest ways to do it is just start throwing out names. Now, I've had Santas say you could throw out names that are not English. Tishan, Rivercop, pick a Klingon name or something like that. And you use these names and the kids, and he says, yeah, no, you're Keeson. And he says, no, my name's not Keeson. Yes, I know your name's Keeson. No, my name's not. You're Keeson. No, I'm not Keeson. I'm Paul. Well, I'm sorry. Keeson is elf language for Paul. And you've got an answer right there, Sometimes the Santas will kid around with the children and they'll say things like, he says, well, oh, you're Susan. Yeah, no, I think you're Susan. And you just keep saying Susan, Susan, Susan. Finally, the child's going to get frustrated and throw out their real name. And then Santa just has to sit there and say, well, see, I knew who you were, but you were trying to trick me. So I thought I'd have some fun with you. And guess what? You had some fun with them. Yeah, and it's not an embarrassing thing. You're not going to get in trouble for doing it. At least I don't think you will. So anyway, I could go on and on about all these questions the kids are asked, but that's not what I'm here tonight to talk about, answering all the children's questions. What I want to talk about tonight is how you develop your own way of answering all the questions that the children ask. Because the children do ask lots of questions, but some of the questions are things that you have to develop your own answers for, answers that you're comfortable with. And part of that is developing your own backstory. Every Santa and Mrs. Claus that I know has at least two personalities, right? You've got the one that you had before you became Santa or Mrs. Claus. What did you do in that previous life, in other words, okay? And and some of us still work that other life. So maybe we do have two lives, okay? But the first is your normal personality or your previous life, as I mentioned. And this is the one you were born with, you grew up with, and developed over many, many years. It may include your family, your schooling, your occupation, all the things that you've done in your life up to the point to when you changed and became Santa or Mrs. Claus, okay? And then you have to develop that personality. And it's that personality that is, for some of us, it's kind of sneaked in over the years, and it's taken over our lives. And these new personalities we have created, and we now perform these things, this new personality in public. This is what we present to the public, this new personality, this new persona. And just about everyone can agree that Santa and Mrs. Claus are upbeat, lively, and vibrant people, joyful, sparkling. I mean, there's so many adjectives you can use to explain Santa and Mrs. Claus. Anyway, these are all part of your new personality. Now, this personality is the product that you present and sell to the public. It's what the parents and the children see. And it's what everyone who knows you and meets you, it's what they see, okay? So one more here. Well, I'm surprised, in the past couple of weeks, by the way, we've had, we hit 100 real quick. And I guess I'm wearing on people. I'm not as popular because I only have 93 on this one. But I have to tell you, the video parts, the live streaming, we have had over 1,000 people view those each week. So that was very, very surprising to see that happen. Okay. Anyway, getting back to the backstory. Santa Joe Prigden, in his PhD presentation at my School for Santas, and a PhD presentation, how that works is, with my school, and the first time you attend my school, if you attend my correspondence course, you're an associate member. That's the thumb drive that I send you, or a DVD where you study at home. If you come to a live class, the first class you come to, you get a bachelor diploma. If you come to two of those classes, the second class, you get a master's diploma. The third one, fourth, fifth, and on, you get a master's or an advanced master's, depending on what year. But after advanced masters, it's always advanced masters. And after a few years, a couple of the Santas came to me and said, how do I get my PhD? I've been coming so many years, I've had one Santa, I think he's been 12 or 13 times he's come to my school. So anyway, I talked to a few other Santas, some of my peers, and we came up with the idea of having a PhD. But the PhD requires that after you've gone to my school a few times, you have to teach a segment of the school, just a little 20-minute segment on one of your favorite subjects regarding Santa Claus or Mrs. Claus or the holidays. I've had Santas do presentations on magic, on exercise, on sleighs, all kinds of things, but it's kind of things. Anyway, Joe Prigden came up with a wonderful presentation on your backstory, creating your backstory, and it covered the basics of it. And he started with a couple areas that were very important. The first thing you need to know in creating your backstory is you need to have a list of known or universally accepted facts. Now, these items are items that we all know, and you could take and write them down on a whiteboard or a chalkboard or a piece of paper or something like that. But I invite you to do this sometime, just as a nice little, test of your knowledge. And you and Mrs. Claus or your wife or your kids could sit down, whoever, and sit down and write down the known or universally accepted facts. Let's start off with North Pole, Santa suit, red and white, okay. Big belt and boots, what color are they? Normally black, okay. What else? Oh, Santa has a beard. Yes, and reindeer and a sleigh. And what did you put in that sleigh? Presents. Yeah, these are known or universally accepted facts. Oh, Christmas Eve, and of course, ho ho ho. Those are all, and there may be more, but they just give you some examples. Universally accepted. So no matter which one of you out there is Santa or Mrs. Claus, all of these things are the same no matter where we go. And in fact, sometimes it doesn't even change from country to country. Okay, universally accepted facts of Santa Claus, okay? Okay, and these are pretty locked down, and they're synonymous with every Santa. There is some flexibility, in whether that red and white suit is a Coca-Cola suit or all fur, or maybe it's a long coat. There's little changes there, but pretty much we know it's a red and white suit, okay? Then Santa Joe added his next category, and these are widely preferred traditions. Now, these add to the known and universally accepted facts. So we talk about traditions, and many of the traditions, some of them came from the various countries where St. Nicholas visited. And in his travels before he came here to the Americas, lots of different customs became traditions with Santa Claus, like filling stockings, going up and down chimneys, having a naughty or nice list, the decorations that we see at Christmas, cookies. Now, not every country has cookies. I mean, in some countries it's porridge, some countries it's a little glass of sherry and a tart, little tart, cake or pie, and a little tiny thing like that. There's the thing about Santa being plump or fluffy, okay? Gloves, bells, his walking staff. These are all things that may have come from traditions in different countries. Another tradition that was added to Santa Claus, Mrs. Claus, okay? Now, it's not always in every country, but Mrs. Claus became part of the Santa persona over the years. And what tradition am I missing here? Are you guessing? Yes, it's the elves. The elves are part of the traditions too. Again, when St. Nicholas visited the Nordic countries, the Arctic Circle, one of the things from those many countries that he inherited or that became part of his personality and his traits is having elves with him and elves working for him, okay? So these are things that, we have to, let's see, I'm gonna try, I got one person waiting. And I hope we got everybody okay. Now, we've got the known facts, we got the traditions, okay? And these all kind of fit together with the persona of Santa and Mrs. Claus. And between those two categories, it's widely accepted that just about all of us have that. Those things are all part of our lives. And we have to answer all the questions about those things too. So when the kids ask you about how many elves do you have, and what are the elves doing now, and at the North Pole, where do the elves live? Do the elves have any favorite foods? Do they ever play tricks on you? Children will ask you all kinds of questions that you never thought they would. And this is where you sometimes have to be able to think on your feet. One of the things that I had learned years ago, I took a class in writing comedy because I was teaching my Santa school and I wanted to be able to throw a few jokes in here and there. I learned that that was necessary. I had to keep the audience awake. Didn't want to bore them to death. So a little comedy was good. But one of the things is the improvisation, learning how to improv and how to think on your feet so that you can answer questions. And some of us are very creative and can create different answers. Some of us talk to other Santas and Mrs. Claus. We learn from them and we adapt from them some of the answers they've had. So you can do a lot of different things here. But no matter what you do, you'll need to incorporate those known facts and the widely preferred traditions into your personality. Okay, they all become part of your personality. And so you need to make sure that you know these things, study up on them. I invite you to go on the web and study a little of the history of Saint Nicholas and study some of the customs and everything. In fact, if you'll wait 1 second, I'm going to leave the screen. I'm going to pick up a book and show it to you. Okay, thank you for your patience. This is the Christmas Encyclopedia by Tanya Gulovich. A wonderful book. It has thousands of facts and information about Christmas, Christmas lore, Christmas traditions. It is a great reader. In other words, you could have a bedtime reader. Lots of little short sections and things like that. Sometimes I kid around and say it's also a good bathroom reader, but the thing is, lots of information. And all of this information helps you develop a better knowledge of Christmas and the traditions and become a better storyteller, or at least be able to answer children more factually on what's going on and what you're doing and everything like that. So it is nice. Okay. So again, Tanya, by the way, if you'd like a copy of that book, I'm getting ready to teach my schools this year. So I went out and I purchased through a company about 20 used copies of the book. So I'll be putting those up on my Schools for Santa site, and you can order those books if you want. And I'll also be bringing them a couple copies to each of my schools. They generally, depending on the condition of the book, are between $10 and $20. But again, you can also find them on the internet. Again, it's the Christmas Encyclopedia by Tanya Gulovich, G-U-L-E-V-I-C-H, Tanya Gulovich, okay? Anyway, lots of information. So you're working on all of that stuff. Now, beyond all of that information, which is the traditions and customs and the background of Santa Claus and Mrs. Claus, you now have to tweak it and tune it and make it your own, okay? And this is where you should have a good backstory, because you have to add to all of this potentially changeable ideas, okay? And these are things that are open to the imagination of the children and open to your individual personality and background, okay? You create your backstory using elements of your own life if you want. Known facts, preferred traditions, changeable ideas. Well, like, when were you born? Who were your parents? Now, some people make this a fantasy type thing. They will basically talk about the fact that their dad was Santa or their grandfather was Santa, and now you're working as Santa and things like that. They'll ask where you were born, and you could actually use the real city where you're born if you wanted to, you know. Well, my dad, it was Santa, and my mom, who was Mrs. Claus, and they were traveling, and I was born while they were traveling. I was born in Los Angeles. So you could use that if you wanted to. They might ask you, are you married? Okay. And of course, if you have a Mrs. Claus with you, certainly you're married. Okay. Where did you meet your wife? How long have you been married? You know, things like that. I recommend that maybe some of these questions are, real answers. So when you say, where did you meet your wife? Use the real city where you met your wife. I think that's a very endearing thing to do. Instead of saying you met her at the North Pole, if you met her in St. Louis, say, oh, I met her in St. Louis. I know a couple out there. I think they met in the military when they were serving in the Army. No, I'm sorry, in the Marines, when they were serving in the Marines. I'm talking about Dale and Trish. They were both in the Marine Corps. Anyway, how did you become Santa? In other words, when did you take over and running everything? How many elves are there? Where do the elves live? What are the elves doing? Do you have siblings? What are your siblings doing? Then the children will go off on wild tangents. What if a child comes to you and says, can you tell me about the time you were on a pirate ship? Now, that's going to throw a lot of Santas for a loop, but guess what? Somewhere an author wrote a story about how Santa became Santa, and along the way, Santa actually became a sailor and was out on a ship and met some pirates. So again, it's kind of crazy. Sometimes the children will take their questions to you that involve things their parents have told them, like, can you tell me when you stood in for Hanukkah, Harry? So you have to be able to answer these questions. And again, sometimes it's little white lines you have to use to create the answers. And, or maybe you don't even say when you took Hanukkah Harry's place. You say, oh, Hanukkah Harry, he is such a great guy and does all these wonderful things. He's like me. He loves children and wants them to get, gifts and things like that. You don't even have to talk about when you took his place. You just go off into a different tangent, a different direction, okay? And of course, any other questions that children might ask. I know there are some lists somewhere on the websites. I have some lists on my website for my School for Santa, and lots of questions that children ask. If you've been to my school, I've also got it in the back of the main course book behind the red suit, a whole bunch of questions. And if you got onto Facebook and talking with anybody in any of the other Santa groups or associations, I'm sure many of them can give you links or information on web pages or sites where you can find all the different questions children ask and all the types of answers, that you can give the children. So again, these are all things that you have to do. You have to do your homework and get yourself ready for all these things. By the way, if you are a Santa and a Mrs. Claus, your answers must match. Yes. Don't get caught in the newlywed trap. Do you remember that? Bob Eubanks, newlywed, asking the questions. He'd ask the husband one question and the wife come back in and they had the wrong answers and somebody was in a lot of trouble, right? You don't want that. So make sure when you talk about where did you meet and those things that may be a little bit about your personal life, that the answers match, this may be a great conversation some night just to sit around with your significant other and talk about all the crazy questions kids could ask and what kind of answers you might come up with. And as you talk together on it, you'll come up with answers that both of you can agree on. And those are the answers you'll use all the time as you develop your personality as Santa and Mrs. Claus. Okay, let me move on that. How are we doing on time, kids? Let's see. Oh, gee, I've got another 20 minutes here. Maybe I may have a few more little things to talk about. I want to talk a little bit now that we're getting away from the backstory and becoming, the true spirit of Santa Claus with all these things that you do. Just remember that whatever you do, children are the first person you're doing this for. That's the number one rule. And you're doing this to make them happy. But surprisingly, when you win a child over, when you surprise a child with some of these unique answers and things like that, you will find that if the parents are nearby, they're very appreciative to see how you do it. Sometimes I've had parents, I know I've had some Santas tell me how parents have come over to him and says they were just amazed at how Santa or Mrs. Claus was able to convince the child of all the real magic there is of Christmas. And one Santa said that one of his happiest moments was when the parents came over and thanked him because in addition to making the children, believe that he was real, he also talked to the children about doing some of their own giving and maybe doing something special for someone else. And the parent really appreciated that the Santa was teaching the children a little bit about, it's not just about getting, it's about giving too. So that's a wonderful thing. So now let's talk about Santa's personality the rest of the year, um, the other 11 months of the year. I truly believe that when we're out there at Santa, Mrs. Claus, we should try to be as real as possible, okay? And this is even when we're not in our red suits, in our fancy holiday dress. Sometimes we're 24/7, 365. We look like this. But we've had Santas that, when they don't have that suit on, they go back to being their old self. And this doesn't always work. I'm going to use the example Bubba Claus, okay, or Bubba Santa. It seems that once the red suit is taken off, his language starts getting a little colorful and slips back to his military or college or high school days when he was hanging out with his buddies. Out comes the colorful language that we don't want anyone to hear. And I think most Santas try to curtail this. I think their Mrs. Claus usually tries to keep them from doing it also, but sometimes it happens. And surprisingly, psychologists and sociologists have told me that this happens a lot with older men. As we get older and we get retired and we kind of get relaxed and we sometimes slip back into our old personalities. So this is something you have to watch. You have to work on it, okay? You can't tell off-color jokes. You should not be sending out texts or emails or Facebook postings. I even recommend you keep your Santa postings separate from your personal postings. So on your personal postings and personal stuff, you can talk politics and do anything you want. But as Santa, you really should stay in character as Santa on your Santa Facebook pages and things like that. Anyway, one of the things I want to mention something. I had a Santa that thought he was being funny at an interview one time with somebody. And, again, he's interviewing for a job. He's going to be Santa for a company for a couple of events. They wanted to meet him. He came by. The guys in the office were very casual and, he heard them, commenting something and making some colorful jokes or something like that. He decided he'd tell a joke too. And of course, his joke was off color, the same as what the guys in the office were doing. But he's Santa, and they did not expect that from Santa. He lost out on a whole week working for a company, almost $5,000. So again, you have to be very careful. You've got to stay in character, even if the people around you are, flippant and saying crazy things and using unusual language and stuff like that. You have to be very, very careful. It's the same thing when you're around, adults and cocktail parties and things like that. The guys are going to be drinking and they're going to be saying things, and even the ladies get a little frisky sometimes. You have to stay in character. Okay, very, very important. By the way, when he lost the job, I lost the contract too. So it didn't help me at all either. And I looked like an idiot for sending him to the interview because of what he did. So, we have to be careful sometimes. People expect us to be on a pedestal, and have higher standards, as they say, in what we're doing. And sometimes it's not just verbal language that Bubba Claus does. Sometimes it's his body language, how he dresses, what he does. Again, try to be, clean and neat. If you're going to leave the house and you've been mowing the lawn and you're hot and sweaty and you've got to run out and go to Home Depot or something like that, go in the house first, brush your hair, maybe throw on a Hawaiian shirt over that sweaty t-shirt, maybe tuck a few business cards in your pocket, whatever, so that when you do go out, you might look like a Santa who's been doing a little work, but at least you're presentable. And if people ask you, why aren't you in your red suit? You can say, well, I'm here helping a friend. She wanted to do some gardening and she's a very old lady. And so I came down to help her out. So I'm doing some of her gardening. Kids will believe you. Okay. The parents will believe you, so you can still be in character as Santa, even though that you're, just running an errand over to Home Depot or something like that. Do I use Home Depot too much? I guess I go there myself too much. Anyway, one other thing, be careful when you're working on a job. Listen to your clients, okay? If you've got instructions from your client of certain things you're supposed to do and follow, you need to follow them. I know there are Santas out there who Say, well, I've been doing this for 40 years and I know what to do. And if they tell you they want you to do something some way, sometimes you have to follow the rules. Again, another Santa that worked for me. And again, I've had so many Santas do bookings and work for me. This Santa was at a very, very big corporation doing a corporate party in the company building. All the employees came to work. They brought all their children with them to work. And he was given an office to where he would change and relax and wait between the times that he would go out and perform. And in between, if he had to go to the bathroom, they reminded him, because the bathrooms were down the hall, he had to be fully dressed when he left the backstage area to go down to the restroom. And then he had to take his coat off and go to the bathroom. He didn't want to do that. So from the backstage area, he took off his coat, took off his hat, and in a tank top, t-shirt, and suspenders, walked down the hallway, past the children, right to the bathroom. Of course, 15 minutes later, he was escorted by security off the property, and he lost the job. And the entertainment company that hired him through me, also fired him, basically canceled all the other jobs he was going to do. And he had 3 or 4 other really good paying jobs. And I'm talking jobs that are paying $800 a day, and for not even a day, a half day. So he had some really good jobs. This is in New York City. So again, be very, very careful. Listen to your employer. And if you have a question, ask the question. But the thing is if they say that's the rules, you probably have to follow the rules. Now, if it's, totally out of line, sometimes I've had them say, you're going to be on the set for 4 hours and you can't take any potty breaks. Wait a minute. Most of us are senior citizens, and some of us guys have to have a break every so often. We can't hold it that long. So they have to do something for us, okay? But make sure you've worked it all out with your client and doing those things. And that's, basically what I've got on most of this stuff here. The last item I want to mention on that, we never want to tattle or be a whistleblower on our friends or stuff like that. But if you see a situation where you know someone who maybe can't handle it anymore, I don't think we've ever seen or had an intervention where we've had to go in and talk to a Santa. But sometimes, it's good to talk to your friends if they're having a problem and see if you can help them out and work things out. Today, more than ever, we as Santas the job is changing constantly. We're getting challenged, and we got to watch out for these little situations with the Santas, because when one Santa has a problem, sometimes it can reflect on other Santas. If it gets in the media or in the news, it can hurt all of us. And heroes are always falling down, and we don't want Santa falling down anywhere. So again, by being professionals and working together, we'll take care of things like that. Well, that's about it for this evening. I invite, of course, questions from anybody. I know people were asking me some questions here. So what I'm going to do here before I go, I think I've got a couple minutes left here. Let's see what the clock says here, about 10 minutes. I'm going to scroll through all of these questions we got up here on the board and see if I can answer. George Campbell has a photo presentation, but I think he wants to do a PhD presentation. That's what it is. J.R. Arthur, Santa J.R. wants to know where all the Santas got such lovely Santa backgrounds. And J.R., I want you to know I have been getting emails from people and found out that a lot of them are coming from YouTube. There are a lot of backgrounds on YouTube, some of them animation and beautiful mountain cabins with snow coming down and things like that. And most of them are free. In other words, there's no payment for them. It's so you can get them there. There are others that you can purchase, but most of us are on fixed incomes and limited budgets. So YouTube is really a good deal for us on those types of things. Let's see. Thomas McDonald is working on the 2020 Signing for Santa book. This is for Santas who do American Sign, I believe, for their, working with the families and things like that. And Thomas McDonald wants everyone to know, if you have any suggestion forms he'd like you to know about it. And on the chat site, you'll find out that he's at McDonough at friscoisd.org. Okay. Oh, I'm sorry. When I was holding that book up, I didn't realize my book had a green cover, and I was holding it up, and we lost some of it. So I'll find the white covered book, and next week I'll bring the white covered book and hold it up so you can see it. But again, that's the Christmas Encyclopedia by Tanya Gulovich. 28 more messages here. Let's see. She also has the Encyclopedia of Christmas and New Year's. That book is also available. And on Amazon, you can get it hardback for $8.99, someone said. So that is a good deal. And if you've got Amazon Prime, free delivery too. That's a good deal there. Let's see, background for Zoom meetings. I am going to do one of these workshops on beard and mustache. Someone was saying, if you keep your beard and hair, and you're 24/7, you never know when a little child will hear you. They say, yes, that's right. Thank you, Roger. I don't see too many more questions here. Let me flip through them. I'm going to do the terrible thing here and unmute everybody. How's that? Let's see if I can unmute. Where do I find the unmute button? Let's see, allow for, okay. I just hit the button where you can unmute yourself if you want to say something. So anybody have any questions or comments?
Santa Tim, can you hear me?
Yes, John Williams, go ahead.
Yes, I would. This is off the subject, but I do think that everyone will join me here in wishing you happy birthday tomorrow. Happy birthday to you, Tim.
Happy birthday, Tim.
Happy birthday, Tim.
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday, Tim.
Happy birthday.
Oh my goodness, if I just let it roll, it'll keep going and going. And
Happy
going.
birthday.
Oh, happy birthday,
Happy
Tim.
birthday. What
Thank
a
you,
guy to do
guys.
to get a birthday wish.
Yeah.
Happy
Yeah,
birthday.
72.
Happy birthday.
Thank you. 72, guys. This is my 51st year of being Santa.
Wow.
Congratulations.
My first gig with a beard was December 23rd, 1969.
Wow.
Beard of shaving cream. And a year later, I was wearing a theatrical beard working in a department store. So thank you again, everybody, for that.
Question, Tim.
See if I come up. If you have any suggestions for next week, why do drop me a note on what you're thinking about. Trying to get some more information. Again, with all of the things going on, like I said, you need to know your backstory. You need to know your background, your history as Santa and what you do, because more and more of us are going to be working this year in different environments where we're going to be with the children probably on longer periods of time, particularly if you're doing the live chats and things like that. And you're going to have to answer more questions, and the questions are going to be more involved. So you need to be prepared to take those types of things. So
I had my group on my set. They have elf names.
well, I'm
Happy and Smiley, and I don't think I'm heard.
well, yeah. Well, the problem is with 6
Okay.
million elves, we would just knowing all the names is hard. I saw
Yeah,
JR raising his hand.
what
JR, did you have a question?
Like to know if you're still planning on having a special presentation on virtual Santa visits.
We are I'm waiting for the folks at Talk to Santa are, I guess, so overwhelmed right now with they're working on some corporate sponsors and things like that, and I guess there's lots of new things coming up. Being the largest company that supplies the Santas for social for calls like this, they're going to get hit the hardest, and they're trying to make sure they've got all of their technical stuff lined up. They have a great technical operation, but they're going to have to add more server capacity and things like that. So they're working on all that, plus more clients and clientele. I know there's some Santas out there who've talked about, well, they're going to do their own live streaming and things like that. And I know that's going to happen, but for most of them, it's just going to be whatever audience they can get. And there are Santas who do the live streaming with Talk to Santa that do hundreds of calls, because Talk to Santa does all the marketing and the advertising and the promotion. And, you know, Coca-Cola, for example, bought thousands of calls and gave them away to military families. And so there were Santas that all they were doing was doing military families. It was, you know, and they were getting paid for it. So it was pretty nice. So, but they're still working on all that. And because they're working on all that, they've had to push back a little bit on the time to set up this webinar. I had a call into John the Porter today, and he was unfortunately busy, but he said we're going to get to it as quickly as we can. And it'd actually be more with Elf Mike helping out, because he's the technical guru for all the operations there at Talk to Santa. And I'll be joining him. And then I'm going to do, once we get that all done, I'm going to spend some time in some of these webinars talking about what we do on live streaming. We'll actually maybe do some special webinars on setting up your own home operation, how you should light it, what you should do, things like that. Because there's some things that you need to start planning for. For example, I think everybody needs to have non-glare coatings on their glasses. The reason non-glare coatings, I'm looking at Rich Dwyer right now, and I can see his computer screen in his glasses. When you have non-glare glasses like I have, you might see a little bit of lighting, but you don't see that blue screen pop back
No, don't
in
see
the
anything
eyeglasses.
at all.
So non-glare glasses are very handy for that. Well, guys, it is time to go. I'm going to take and get this all edited. It will be, of course, it's on Facebook now for anybody to watch it again, or for any of your friends to watch it. And it will be on YouTube sometime tomorrow. You know, again,